Alright, welcome back everybody to another flight on our trip around the world in the fly-by-wire A320neo. We are here in Athens, Greece, where we are preparing to depart for Cairo tonight on our next leg heading around the world tonight. We're going to be trying out a few different things. Firstly, we have the experimental version, which was recently re-released by Fly-by-Wire. They've added lots of awesome features in this new experimental build, including TCAS and enhanced LNAV and some other improvements, and we'll try to find opportunities to test those features along the route today. There may be issues with Crasher Desktop that have been reported with this latest experimental version, but we'll take our chances and see how well we do. The other issue, there have been live weather issues plaguing Microsoft Flight Simulator today. So today we will still be doing live weather, but we'll be doing so courtesy of the Rex mod, which will be injecting real Metar data into our sim as we fly. So we'll still get to enjoy live weather as we fly on VATSIM tonight. So considering technical issues has been a theme across the sim today, I am just checking a few settings on the stream to make sure we are all good to go before I jump into the cockpit and we start preparing for our flight. Alright, so everything looks right. So again, here we are in beautiful Athens. This is the Fly Tampa Athens airport mod, and it looks absolutely beautiful. It really looks like the real airport, down to even the hotels that are on the site. There's an Accor Sofitel right there, and there we see that the Rex mod is working because we're actually getting clouds. If we were on live weather right now, it would just be clear skies, and that is definitely not the case in Athens right now. Hopping into the cockpit, we really get to enjoy the immersion of this scenery here in Athens with these fully realized interiors and people animations, which is fantastic. I'm very curious about what all these people are doing just hanging out here on the tarmac, but I'm going to ignore that and just assume they have a legitimate reason for being there. And this guy looks like he's making sure everyone stays orderly. Maybe it's a smoking area, I don't know. In any case, it's super cool, super immersive. As you can tell, we are in a cold and dark cockpit, so let's get some lights on and we'll start going through our preparatory flows. So let's turn our batteries on. The charge looks fine. Get some lights on there. And get some external power on. Beautiful. What a lovely clunk. Going through our initial flows here, we'll get the cruise supply on, ground control set to auto. We'll start getting our aiders aligned because that'll take some time. We'll set the rest of our lights, no smoking and emergency exit. We'll keep seatbelts off for now because we have to do some refueling, and as a result we'll also keep the fuel pumps off for the time being. I will do our fire test real quick so we can get the APU going. Very cool. And what you can see, if I hold this fire test button down and we look at the Ecam, you can see the appropriate fire messages and Ecam procedures show up down here, which is actually a really cool touch. Alright, so what else do we need? Landing elevator set to auto. Yes, we're going to start the APU. Oh, and of course get our nav and logo lights on, so folks know that we're here. Strobe set to auto. Lights are set for now. APU start. 1, 2, 3. And that's just to get our packs going, kind of a COVID era recommendation to have your APU running and your APU bleed and packs online for when folks board the plane, just to kind of make sure that air is circulating frequently through the filtration system on board. Keep people safe. Alright, coming down to our screens here, we'll go ahead and get more lights on. Well, actually no, that's way too bright for night flight. Yes, that's fine, kind of where it is. Get our glare shield. These Ecam screens look fine. We'll get some integrated lights on down here. Cool. So we're using our comprehensive checklist tonight, so I will refer to that in a second. Since we have lights on the cockpit, I'm also using realistic lights here in my home. So since the cockpit lights are on, my home lights are on, and we'll turn that off once we get to our runway. Let's get our flight pad booted up. We'll start getting fuel on board. So let's sync with SimBrief, pull that data in. Nice light winds, both here in Athens and in our destination, Cairo. I'll just quickly write down the ATIS information so we have it. So we are at 1022 millibars here in Athens, and winds are 290 at 4 knots. And we have temperature of 6 degrees Celsius, dew point of 4 degrees. Excellent. Looking at our operational flight plan tonight, just make sure everything looks correct. We're going from Athens to Cairo, same time zone between the two destinations. Our alternate tonight is Hotel Echo Tango Bravo. That's somewhere east of Cairo. I actually don't know the name of that airport, but we can look it up en route. But that is our alternate tonight in case, for whatever reason, we can't land in Cairo. But looking at the weather there, I don't think that'll be an issue. Let's see, make sure everything else looks good. COS Index 15, we are Aegean 9084 tonight. Cruise flight level 390, triple pause 38,000 feet, which is nice. Trip wind, tailwind of 20 knots, so we'll get a nice little push on our way. Alright, so max shear rate of 4 at Labna, so there will be some turbulence to look out for. We'll take a closer look at that in a moment. Flight route looks fine. Just kind of looking at our wind, so winds 290, so yeah, I guess that would result in a slight crosswind on route on runway 3 right, but that shouldn't be too much of a problem since it's pretty light winds. Direct to flight level 390, we are departing via the key to Juliet departure, and there's no star on the Cairo side, so that will be a direct ILS in to runway 5 right. We'll take a look at those charts en route. Alright, so our fuel for tonight's recommending a block fuel of 6.6 tons roughly, which I think is fine, considering we're likely to not need our alternate tonight, and that should give us plenty of fuel. So we'll take the recommended amount of 6587 and get that loaded now. Alright, so going through the rest of our OFP, well, before we do that, let's actually get folks on board, because that will take some time as well. So head to our AOC menu. Let's go ahead and put in a weather request while we're here. So we are at Lima Golf Alpha Victor, and we'll do Hotel Echo Charlie Alpha for oh, did that register right? Sorry. Alpha Victor. That's better. We want Metar information. It should match the SimBrief, but I like to kind of do it through there just to be on the safe side. Okay, so that is going through. Let's go ahead and do our boarding. So tonight we have a total of 132 passengers, and let's make sure our APU is running. It is. APU bleed is on, packs are running, so we can go ahead and start boarding those passengers. Great. So while that's happening, let's go back to our operating flight plan and continue briefing this flight. Alright. So kind of scrolling down here, Labna, I think that's where we hit the max shear rate right before our top of descent. We can see here shear rates are pretty manageable. It really only gets rough at Labna, so we'll probably be in a nice, maybe we give the seatbelt signs off probably until we get close to Labna. We'll keep an eye out for turbulence as we get closer to there. And let's go ahead and take a look at our weather. So weather here in Athens, yep, this is pretty similar to what we're seeing on SimBrief. We'll check the Metar in a second. But visibility is fantastic. Few clouds at 3,000. Temperature is fine. I don't think we'll have any issues with icing. QNH 1023, no significant weather. It's fine. Destination, Cairo. Similar wind situation, although the low ceiling, or rather kind of limited visibility of about 1 kilometer, And this, I'm not exactly sure how to interpret, but I do see fog. So, oh, these are different runway visibilities, it looks like. Runway 5 left, 23 right, 5 right. Those might be current minimums. We'll check the charts and cross-reference, but this seems to be the beginning of the Metar over here. So fog, NSC, not sure what that is. Let me take a quick look. How do we interpret NSC? No significant clouds. But it looks like we'll have to look for fog. But that should make our approach pretty fun. We'll actually have to maybe do an auto land depending on posted minimums. All right. Just looking at these temporary ones. All right, fantastic. I think that's fine for now. And I think that's all we want to review here at the moment. So let me take a look at our standard operating procedures and make sure that everything is where it should be for this for being powered up. So our radar is off, wind shear, predictive weather systems off, gain knobs auto, those in op anyway. Master switches are off. Mode selectors to norm, gear lever is down, and both wiper selectors are in the off position, and if they weren't, we'd hear it because it is loud as hell. Electrics were on external power, so that is fine. APU is running, fire test is complete, cockpit lights are set, air conditioning is set. Let's take a look at our Ecam messages real quick. So do some recall, nothing should pop up, and nothing does. Oxygen pressure is fine. Let's look at our hydraulic fluid level. Nice and full. Oh, we should be, if our doors are open still, our cargo door is open. So we should be getting pressure to the yellow system because of the cargo door, but that doesn't seem to be working in the experimental build right now. So something to be aware of, fly-by-wire, if anyone's watching this. Engine. Oil quantity looks fine. Alright, so speed brake lever is disarmed and retracted. Flaps are in the 0 position. Parking brake, positive pressure. And acupressure normal. We got our ATIS. We'll do performance calculations when we get to the box. And that is all set for that element. Alright, so doing the cockpit preparation. What are we looking for here? So it looks like our refueling is complete. Let's just confirm. Yep, that is done. So let's do our flows again, starting with the overhead. So now we can turn all the pumps on. And we can go ahead and turn the seatbelt signs on, and overhead looks complete. Going to number 2. Alright. We'll set our master QNH in a sec. We did our Ecam prep. We'll set our auto brakes after we taxi, or after we push back rather. Clock is correct. Let's look at the pressure page, landing elevator set to auto. All right. Just making sure I'm not missing anything here. All right. So before we set up the box, let's go ahead and get our charts in order. So here we are in Athens. I have some preloaded. It looks like I have the parking stands for Athens set up. So we also want the airport map there. And our standard instrument departure tonight, we are looking at key to Juliet, which we have already tagged here. And looking at this, there's going to be a speed restriction, so make sure to get that into the box. Our initial climb out looks like it'll be 4,000. Just reading the key to procedure here. Climb on the SAT VOR radial 46 at 1,100 feet. Turn right and intercept KRO radial 264 inbound to KRO Kilo Romeo Oscar VOR at 14 miles. At 14 miles KRO, turn right to Kilo Echo Alpha VOR. So there's a number of VOR points here. Interesting. So we fly directly towards this VOR here, but when we get to 14 miles, bang a right and head to Key and then continue. Yeah, I think actually at Key, then we go direct on our path as filed. Alright, so lots to track there. That'll be a lot of fun once we get to the RadNav page, but for now, while we're on our glare shield, let's get our QNH in, which what we recorded is 1022. And we'll get our initial climb out altitude, 4,000 feet, programmed in the box. Okay. And also get constraints selected. While we're up here, we'll turn the secondary flight director off and turn these screens off because it may save us a few frames. And we don't have an actual co-pilot here tonight. Alright, I think those are all the charts we need for now. We'll add our arrivals once we are airborne. Let's just kind of brief our departure here tonight. So we're flying out of runway 3 right, and we are at stand Alpha 1, which is roughly here. So we'll push back facing south, and we'll go ahead and turn off at the first possible opportunity to Charlie. We'll take Charlie all the way down to Delta 1. We'll hold at Delta 1, do our pre-takeoff checklists, and we'll go ahead and into the runway from Delta 1 just to make the maximum use of the runway we have. 4,000 meters, which is plenty of runway, should be no problem. We may be able to do a flex takeoff tonight, but we'll worry about that once we get into the box. Speaking of, let's do it. So everyone's on board, fantastic. So the weights and balances are ready to go. Let's do our quick data check. IRSs should be aligned. They all show nav. Great. And LEAP engines are correct, and we do have the latest AirX cycle loaded, and that's all good to go. For a future video, I will dig into what these stored routes and waypoints are that FlyByWire recently added, but we won't play with those tonight. Init, let's do our init request. Go Athens to Cairo. Alternate looks correct. We are GN9084 tonight. Triple pause. Let's make sure that jives. 38528. Pretty close. We'll just put in the one from the flight plan just for agreement there. Cost index of 15. Flight level 390 looks fantastic. Flight plan. So LGAV, we are doing the key to Juliet departure from runway 3 right. There we go, key to Juliet. And insert. There's a discontinuity there and a repeat for key. We'll go ahead and eliminate that duplicate because key is actually a part of the SID. And we'll go direct to Tuxum from key. So let's take a look and make sure that all looks good on the plan. So there's key. There's our restriction, 6,000 or below. Does that actually jive with the chart? It does. Great. Agreement's always nice. And okay, so other way. And we are doing an overfly there. So that is the first evidence that the new LNAV system is going to operate as intended. So that should be the waypoint. That is about 14 miles from that VOR point. Cairo, VOR rather. And we're going to overfly it and make the turn, which is great. And before then, yep. So we'll probably, and this is the vector. So we'll probably hand fly this until we are on the path to the KRO VOR. So let's go ahead and put in some fixes to help kind of guide our initial departure. So one we're going to use is, so we want to climb on the 46 radial for Sierra Alpha Tango. So let's add that as a fix. Yeah, the one that's nearby, that's the one we want. And the radial is 46. There it is. So that's our initial departure path. And once we get to 1,100 feet, turn right and intercept KRO 264. So we'll add another fix here for Kilo Romeo Oscar. And the radial we want there is 264. And there it is, and it directly intercepts their GPS line, which is fantastic. So we'll follow this first blue line until we get to 1,100 feet. We'll make a right turn, and then we'll intercept. We'll intercept that radial there until we are 14 miles, and then we'll make that right turn. Awesome. All right, so that looks good for now. Going back to flight plan page, I think we're set for our departure. We'll worry about our arrival once we're airborne. So off to the RadNav page. Oh, let me set this back to ARC. Great. All right, so let's put in our relevant VORs here. We're not going to worry about Sierra Alpha Tango because we don't really need to see our distance from it. Kilo Romeo Oscar is far more important because that will dictate when we do that turn. It is reflected on the navigation panel, but it'll just be a secondary check of our distance to make sure that the GPS is working properly, and we'll go in and put Kilo Echo Alpha on our secondary. Alright, I think that's it for the RadNav page. We'll go ahead and get those on while we're thinking about it. And they're being picked up beautifully. Alright, back to init 2, 0 fuel weight, 56.2. How's that compared to our operating flight plan? 56.2 looks great. And 24.1 for 0 fuel weight center of gravity. Go ahead and put that in. Block fuel tonight we know is going to be 6.6. Get that in. And what was it? Tailwind of 20. Yeah. So T20. Boom. And let's get our other fuel elements in there. Right. 0.5, 1.5, and 1. 0.5, 1.5, and 1. And that leaves us with 10 minutes of extra fuel. Totally fine, considering we're not expecting to use our alternate. Fuel prediction page, just take a look at this. Estimate fuel on board if we had to use our alternate. And center of gravity 24.4. We'll just record that for our takeoff trim. Alright, so that's init 2. Lastly, performance. And now let me pull up my takeoff calculator and pull up some charts so I can put some data in here and see what flex we could use tonight. So we are taking off runway 3 right. That is oriented at 32 degrees. Elevation on this end is 276. On the other end is 308. So let's call it 290 on the average. The length in meters is 4,000 meters. Nice and long. Practically no slope. Wind tonight we determined is what? 290 at 4 knots. Outside air temperature is 6 degrees. QNH is 1022. Runway condition is dry. Is that the case? I mean, it looks a little damp. I think there was some precipitation earlier today, but let's call it dry for now. Takeoff weight is 63 tons. When we do flex takeoff, we'll do configuration 1. We'll turn our packs off. Anti-ice will be off tonight. And takeoff center of gravity 24.4. Alright, so yes, we can do a flex takeoff. So going back to our box, we are going to do a, and it's recommending a trim of 0.9 up. So we're going to do a flaps 1, 0.9, up 0.9. Get that in here. Our flex temperature is 68 degrees. Transition altitude, what is that tonight? 9,000 feet. I love when the box gets it right. Thrust reduction, acceleration, and engine out altitudes are fine. And let's see what V1s they predict here. Oh, that's way too low for our flex. So we'll go ahead and put in what my calculator has calculated. So 148 V1, 149 for rotate speed, and 150 for single engine. Alright, so that looks good. That is our box complete. So we talked about weather, we talked about our taxi routing, we talked about the runway, we talked about our departure. Let's talk about engine out procedures real quick. So pulling up the charts again, we're going to load up the approach chart for runway 3 right, and I think the one I wanted to use was the ILS Yankee. So if there is, well, let's brief failures and then I'll talk about what we do on an engine out takeoff. Firstly, if there is an issue on the way to the runway, bring the airplane to full stop, and we'll contact ATC about the issue and clear any Ecam messages, and then make the decision whether or not to return to the gate or continue to the runway. If there's a failure before 100 knots or V1, we'll call out the malfunction and we'll bring the plane to, and I'll call out either stop or go. If I call stop, I'll apply the rejected takeoff procedure and bring the airplane to complete stop on the runway. I'll set the parking brake, call attention crew at station, and I'll monitor rev green and decel simultaneously and silence any oral warnings and inform ATC that we are rejecting the takeoff. Thereafter, I'll carry out any Ecam actions. And if an evacuation is required, we will carry out the emergency evacuation checklist. If there's a failure after V1, takeoff will be continued, and there'll be no action taken before 400 feet AGL, except silencing of any alarms and gear up. Once we're at 400 AGL, we'll complete any Ecam actions. And for engine failure, damage, or fire, when the engine is secured, we'll stop the Ecam, level off, accelerate, and clean up. If the engine is not secured, we'll continue climbing until the engine is secured, but not above the engine out maximum acceleration altitude. At green dot open climb, select MCT on the throttle. We'll resume Ecam, complete after takeoff checklists, and check the status of the issue. And then at that point, we will fly the missed approach routing, which is why I have this chart up. So we'll climb straight ahead, intercept and follow radial 32 Sierra Papa Alpha VOR. And at 12 miles to that VOR, we'll turn right at 200 knots max inbound to SPA VOR, and we'll follow radial 250 inbound to the ATV VOR, and we'll follow radial 243 ATV VOR to EGN non-directional beacon and hold. Climb to 4,000 feet, and then once we're at the holding point, we'll decide whether to return to the airport or continue as planned. All right, and that did remind me, one thing we did miss on the box was actually pre-selecting our initial speed. So if you recall on the SID here, there is a velocity restriction of 210 knots, and we could set that on the autopilot, but I find it feels safer somewhat to pre-select it here in the box, so that while we could also always use the autopilot as the backup to control our speed, if we have it pre-selected here, it will fly at that speed until we clear it out. All right, so at this point, we will prepare to push back and start. So at this point, we'll get the tow connected.
Cockpit to ground.
This is ground. Stand by.
At this point, we should be seeing, yep, there's the jetway going. Let's check our doors. Cargo is still open. Are they wrapping up? They don't seem to be moving. And there's some clipping going on over there. Well, let's see if we can force them away.
Okay, sir. The bypass pin is installed. All doors and hatches closed and all ground equipment is removed.
The parking brakes are set. You may lift.
Parking brake set. Lifting the aircraft.
There's the lift.
Standing by for pushback.
I can't seem to get them away. well, in the meantime, we'll go ahead and turn external power off. Don't need it anymore. I see the door is closing. Even though the animation's there, but you know what, that's fine. It's not going to be an issue for us to kind of push back through that graphic, so I'm not going to worry about it. But we are just about ready for pushback. So let's do our before start checklist, and then we'll make our radio call to a Unicom. Since there are no controllers online tonight, let me just double check that no one came online while we were preparing. Nope, it's too late Athens time, so no controllers online. And let's see, cockpit prep is complete. Gear pins and covers have been removed. Signs are on or auto. Aiders are on nav. Fuel quantity is checked. Takeoff data is set. And our QNH is set. So before start checklist, down to the line. So let's go ahead and get our pushback. Well, we're not getting our pushback clearance, but we'll make our pushback call. Athens traffic, Aegean 9084 at stand Alpha 1 at Athens International, ready for push and start. Alright, so that sets our transponder is set to 7000, which I think is the standard if you don't have an assigned squawk code. Windows and doors are closed. There we go. Slides checked armed, beacon on, because we'll be starting our engines. Thrust levers on idle, acupressure indicator, check one more time, looks good. And nose wheel steering disconnect is displayed, as expected. We'll go ahead and turn our parking brake off. And we'll begin.
Please set parking brakes.
Oh. Maybe I have to give the reverse command first. So let's do that. Actually, before we start, because we want to start our engines as we're pushing back, so let's do our before start checklist below the line. Windows and doors are closed, beacons on, thrust levers are idle, parking brake is whatever they tell us they want us to do. So we'll do that now.
Cockpit to ground.
Go ahead.
We are cleared for start and push. Parking brake set.
Okay, cleared for push start. Please release parking brake.
And I just want to take a look, because if we get really in close to... Yeah, we see a red light there. I want to see if that
Please
changes.
release parking brake.
Parking brake's
Parking
released.
brakes are released.
And you know what? That is a parking brake
Commencing
indicator.
pushback. You can start the engines in sequence.
It will start in the sequence.
So that's how the ground crew knows that your parking brake has been released, is when that light goes off. And I love that little detail in the fly-by-wire. Alright, so as we're pushing back, we are going to set engine to ignition. And fuel pumps are on, APU bleed is on, so engine to start. Make sure we push back nice and straight, at least as straight as we can. Beautiful Aegean Airlines livery tonight. We always fly the livery of the national airline of the country we are leaving. So since we're leaving Greece tonight, we are flying the national airline of Greece, which is Aegean Airways. Oh, beautiful night light effects on that taxiway here on this custom scenery. They did a really nice job. On the line? Just about. So we'll stop there.
Okay, pushback completed. Please set your parking brake.
Parking brake set.
Parking brake set. Lowering aircraft.
Alright. Engine 1 start.
Ground. You may disconnect.
Okay, sir. Clear to disconnect. Pin has been removed. See you at the side. Have a good flight.
Setting
Holding
2 is
position
increasing.
waiting for the visual. Thank you and goodbye.
We have an active igniter. Get a closer look here at the stats as it powers up. Nose wheel disconnect has been cleared from the Ecam. EGT N1 is increasing. Alright. Engine start complete. So, let's get our engine mode back to normal. APU bleed can now go off. No anti-ice is required tonight. APU master switch off. Ground spoilers set to arm. We'll set rudder trim to 0, which it is. Flaps set to 1 for takeoff. And pitch trim hand wheel. I like to refer to... sorry, not that one. Flight control page. We want a trim of up 0.9. So pitch trim is set. Alright, Ecam looks fine. Oh, we have our, I just see a company message for the Metar. We'll pull that up once we're in flight. We don't really need it right now. And ground crew is disconnected. The memo is not displayed for nose wheel steering. And alright, after start checklist, anti-ice as required. Ecam SAS is checked. Pitch trim is set to 0.9 up. Rudder trim is 0. After start checklist complete. Alright, well, we don't need taxi clearance. We will get our taxi lights on, though. So, set the taxi and runway turnoff since we're taxiing at night. We'll go ahead and check our flight controls. So, full left, full right, down, up, neutral. And then for the rudders, we will disconnect from the nose wheel. And we'll do full left and full right. And here, I'll just kind of give a view that our nose wheel is not turning with our rudders. Yep, our rudder is deflected, nose wheel is nice and straight. So that new feature is working excellently. We wouldn't want that wheel turning on us stationary. Alright, we are ready to taxi. So, clear left, clear right, parking brake disconnected, and let's roll. So we'll use rudder for small corrections on the straights, and we'll use the tiller on turns. So we'll want to be below 10 knots for turns with the tiller. And we'll go ahead and start our turn here. Still practicing with this thing, so my turns aren't exactly perfect. Well, I'm kind of happy with that one. Could have been worse. There is a bit of delay on the tiller that you need to get used to, just like the real aircraft. So we'll make another right turn here onto Charlie. Sorry for that. Turn here on Charlie. Oh, that was a bit early, as you can see, so let's get ourselves back on the center line as we make our way down to the runway. Just remind ourselves what our turnoff point is there. So we're looking for Delta 1. Alright, we are ahead of the game here. So as we are rolling, we'll set our predictive weather, even though it's in-op, but we'll set it to 1 and to auto. ATC mode on. Brakes set to max. I should see where I'm going. Alright, still rolling, still fine. Let's see, config here. Just notify the cabin here because we'll be taking off very shortly.
Flight attendants, please prepare for takeoff.
And takeoff config. Normal, excellent. So read these signs. This is Delta 3. Alright, so 2 more to go. Enjoy some of the scenery as we head out. Did a really nice job. I'll have to fly back here. So that was D2. The visibility of those signs is tough. I wish there was an easier way. This should be ours. This should be a D1. So we'll start slowing down for this turn. And we'll use that tiller. Right about now, let's try this. Not too bad. Yeah, just gotta finesse it a little bit. Runway 3 right, check. Oh, what's happening? Oh, here's our hold short. That was weird. It felt like something wasn't centering. But it looks fine. Put the parking brake on temporarily as we do our final checks here. So, engine mode set to norm, TCAS. At this point, we get to turn it on. I don't know if there's any traffic in the area, but we'll see as we fly. And let's just make sure it's set to above on our climb. Cabin crew's been advised brake fans are off because we haven't needed them. Packs, we'll go ahead and turn them off for this flex takeoff. Push path. Alright, and of course we'll want our lights, takeoff lights to be on. Go ahead and set our strobe on now. And approach looks clear. Don't see anyone coming on the approach. We'll go ahead and turn these lights off, and I'll do the same in my basement, just to make it feel a bit more realistic. Alright, so before takeoff checklist below the line, takeoff runway is confirmed, cabin crew's been advised, TCAS is on TARA, engine mode selected as required, packs as required, before takeoff checklist complete. Alright, let's go ahead and fly this takeoff. Athens traffic at GN9084, ready for takeoff, runway 3 right. So our initial climb out is to 1100 feet. Once we get to 1100 feet on that radial, we will turn and intercept that next radial. You know what? There is something wrong with my rudder. Hold on. Is it the rudder or is it... I think it was the tiller. Just had to reset the joystick. Alright. Well, now I need the tiller to get back on the center line here to this runway. Sorry about that. Some peripheral issues that hopefully don't exist on the real airplane. Oh wow, we are starting this takeoff roll on the lights. That's crazy. Probably don't need that much runway, but alright, make sure we are on that center line. Alright. Takeoff. N1 stable at 50%. Main Togo, speed select 210, SRS runway. Hundred knots. B1, rotate. Positive rate, gear up. Feet, we'll turn right to intercept that radial. Thrust climb. Speed check. Flaps up. We're at speed. We'll disarm speed brakes at this point. Speed alt star. Still hand flying this thing. Turn these lights off. Whoop, blew through our altitude. And we are tracking 20 nautical miles, so in 6 miles we should hit that waypoint and we'll turn towards Kilo Echo Alpha if memory serves. So we're 0.4 miles off the track. I can level off here. Still hand flying, because it's fun, and turn. Oop, a little too much. A little too much there. I have to level off. Let's see. Reduce the brightness a little bit. Oh, too much, too much! Ah! At 2 miles, we should hit that point and begin our turn. So at this point, I will turn on nav mode. I feel good about GPS flying the rest of this departure for us. Autopilot 1. And we'll go through our after takeoff checklist. So landing gear is up, flaps retracted, packs are on. No, they're not. We didn't turn the packs back on yet. That's what checklists are made for. Give it about 10 seconds before we turn the other one on. Alright. Now let's go ahead and check our chart just to see altitude guidance for the rest of this departure. Alright, we'll want to be at 6,000 feet by Kilo Echo Alpha. So we'll go ahead and get that in. Do a managed climb. But there are restrictions to climbing. We don't want to override that. So let's actually take a look. Yep, there's our restriction right there, 6,000, and we are climbing. Let's hop outside and enjoy some of the views of this departure. So long, Athens. Maybe we can check to see if that weather is still working. So at this point we should actually be free of the speed restriction. It was just for the turn. So let's hop into the box and clear selected speed. Can we? Guess not. Oh, well, it's in mode selected. Oh, I see. So that it showed up automatically. So let's go ahead and go to manage speed. Ah, that's how you do it. That makes sense. So we'll get to Kilo Echo Alpha a little faster. About 17 miles. Looks like there's some there'll definitely be some islands we'll be passing by or through or over on the way. I didn't even remark on it, but that overfly did work quite nicely on that turn to get onto the path to Kilo Echo Alpha. So good job, fly-by-wire. So where we're about to fly over, looks like it has some terrain. Must be this island here. What is that island? Do you have a name? Doesn't seem like it, at least not on this map. But there we are, about to fly over it. Let's see if Google Maps has an opinion on what that is. That is the island of... You're not going to believe it. It's the island of Key. So the VOR is actually the name of the island. Alright, well, once we pass Kilo Echo Alpha, that will be the end of the SID. At that point, we'll just clear ourselves to flight level 390. Just confirm that is what we want. 390, perfect. Starting our turn. And let's go ahead and get up there. Let's climb. We'll do it, we'll do open climb. Throttle climb, open climb. And now that we're climbing to our assigned altitude, we'll go ahead and set our QNH as standard. Next up will be our 10,000 feet checks. And once we get through these checklist items on our climb, I want to check in on the Rex plugin because it's not clear if it's going to give me live weather all the way or if it just provided live weather at the point of takeoff and just kind of leaves that constant all the way. I do hope it updates itself, but it's not entirely clear from the user interface, so I'll take a look at that once we clean up the aircraft. Okay, so 10,000 feet checks, here we go. 10,000 feet checks. So we'll set our set that to airport, retract our landing lights. Seatbelts, you can go ahead and turn that off right now. And we'll ping the cabin crew. Ecam memo pressurization looks normal to me. Not that I'm an expert, but anyway. Nav aids, so we can go ahead and turn off our VORs and clear them from the box. So, rad nav, clear, clear. Ready for arrival data when we're ready for that. And optimal max cal. Yep. So our cruise is 390, our optimal is 390, our max is 390. I'm not sure if this is actually functional, but we'll go with it. Weather radar with inops, so nothing to do there. And speeds, we're on managed speed. Great. So just making sure there's nothing else to do. Alright, I think we are set to our cruising altitude, and we should be getting a nice sunrise. It's just so clear. Are there any clouds? It's so hard to see at night. Alright, but let me take a moment. Ah, okay. You know what? It is updating airports as I fly, because right now it's getting its data from Syros, which is 26 kilometers from my current location. And that Metar has got light variable winds at 2 knots. I mean, for all intents and purposes, clear weather based on that Metar. So it'll be interesting. Yeah, I guess it's just going to continuously update to closest airport, and let's actually validate that on our screen here. So it's 26 kilometers. It's using LGSO. Let's go to nav mode, see if there's any airports behind us. LGSO. I don't see it. I don't see LGSO. And what's 26 kilometers? It's like, it's less than 20 miles. I wonder if there's some logic that dictates what airports show up on the screen. Maybe it's just airports that can handle an A320. You know, we can find out. If you guys will go on this journey with me, let's look up LGSO and see what that is all about. Oh yeah, there's no way an A320 is landing at that airport. And is it on our chart? LGPA, LGNX. I mean, LGPA is not going to be the closest one. So how often does Rex update? Oh, there's LGSO. Okay. I see. So, yeah, still taking weather from LGSO. Okay, we'll see. We'll see how this goes as we go. I have a feeling the Microsoft Flight Simulator and live weather, when you're kind of doing oceanic operations or going after large bodies of water like we are on tonight, we would prefer Microsoft's live weather system, if my assumptions here are correct, if it just relies on airport data. We'll also validate that as we go. Like we'll be you know, high over the Mediterranean for a good portion of this flight. So like when we maybe enter Cairo airspace, we'll see what the weather mod is doing at that point. But yeah, my one hope is that we just don't see like weather pop it. You know, if we go from one Metar to another that happens to be significantly different, like we don't see like weird weather anomalies. I'm just actually going back to the mod website. Take a look at the instruction manual. For how to use live weather. Lord Presidente, yes, I agree. Definitely is an absolutely gorgeous sim, even at night. And we've been flying at night quite a bit because I've been doing these sims, these flight sessions in real time. And the only time I really get to fly is like late evening Eastern time in the United States. So as we've been making our way across the world, we've been literally flying through the night. Only now are we far enough east where late evening local time for me is daylight hours for where we're actually flying. So while I'm hoping to land in Cairo after daybreak, as we continue pushing east through the Middle East and then into India, we'll be doing pretty much exclusively daytime flights until we get back to the west coast of the United States, and then we'll start getting to twilight again. Alright, so looking back at this, let's look live weather mode, okay. Alright, so it is getting continuous weather updates. It doesn't really address how live weather works. Looking to see if anyone has comments on how Rex works. Recent comments. Not really seeing anything. So it shouldn't impact us too much now. Let's see. We're still pulling data from Ceros. It's also unclear like how much this is like updating the sim. Alright, well, before we let too much time go by, we're getting closer to our cruising altitude. We are set to arrive in about an hour's time. Okay, so in about 20 minutes, we'll do all of our descent prep. I'll probably program in our descent. Ooh, what just happened? Or did the weather just update? Ooh, the weather is... altimeter is going nuts. Anyone else see that? And we're definitely not on live weather. I can confirm that. Something is not right. Every time I clicked on the weather box, airspeed indicator jumped. Interesting. I could have sworn it was doing that on its own before I even started playing with that. Alright, well, we'll keep an eye on it. See if it does that again. Looks like Rex hasn't updated weather since. We're still getting data from Cirrus, which is about 70 kilometers behind us at this point. But in any case, we'll keep going. Really have been enjoying the lighting effects with the sunrise. But when we were crossing the North Atlantic a number of flights ago, the lighting effects that were coming on the other side of the pole was just absolutely gorgeous. I have no idea if it was realistic, but it was convincing to me at least. That's what you'd likely see if you're flying close to the poles. And this is probably a good time to reflect on where we've been and where we're going. So, coming back to our Navigraph charts here, just to illustrate. This series is focused on an around-the-world journey. How do I get this? Sorry guys, there we go. Just make sure you guys can still see this. Nope, you cannot. So let's pop it back in. There we go. For some reason I can't resize this window anymore. The bugs we're experiencing today are just awful. Alright, well, can't resize it, but we'll use this window. We started this journey in Newark, New Jersey, which is my local international airport. And again, since I don't have a ton of time to do sims, if I want to do around the world journey, I can't do an oceanic procedure flight that would take 6+ hours. Since I have a day job, I have a family, I need to sleep. So I thought, well, wouldn't it be fun if I could find a legitimate route around the world in an A320, 2 hours at a time, so it could fit with my personal schedule. And looking for airports that had runways that were the sufficient width and length to both support a landing and a takeoff with passengers on board. It's been dictating our route all the way through. So from Newark, we flew up to Montreal, then we flew to Le Grand Riviere, then we flew to Ikalowit in Nunavut, which was unbelievable approach. If you get an opportunity to sim a flight to Ikalowit, I highly recommend it. And actually reading up on this town was fascinating. It's the smallest of all the Canadian provincial capitals. I think there's only 7,000 people that live there, but it's the capital of the Nunavut province. And it's really cool history and really cool culture. There's some awesome YouTube videos on the culture in Ikalowit. Definitely check it out. But from there we cut over to Greenland, which is about a 2-hour flight. And then from Greenland we hit Reykjavik. And then from Reykjavik to Scotland, Scotland to London, London to Innsbruck, which is famous for its challenging approach. We actually flew that one twice because the first one was so hair-raising. We landed it. It was awesome. It was probably one of the best landings I've done in the sim. But it was just hair-raising. Like, honestly, if that was a real-world flight, we would have rejected the takeoff. We would have rejected the landing and gone around and try again. But since it's the sim and there's no real stakes, I decided to stick it, and we actually stuck it. But the following flight, we did effectively like a traffic pattern loop around Innsbruck to try that approach again to see if we can do it any better, and we did, thankfully. And then from Innsbruck we flew to Rome, Rome to Athens, and now we're heading to Cairo. And once we hit Cairo, we'll continue our 2-hour leg-at-a-time journey across the way. This is flight 11. I think there are 37 flights planned to get back to Newark. But definitely kind of hoping to get guidance along the way, both on improving how I'm reflecting real-world procedures. Like, I already saw a mistake. I did not turn the timer on when we started those engines. But yeah, it's just getting better at the real-world procedures that I'm trying to follow as faithfully as possible, but also get advice on cool flights to do, cool places to see, challenging approaches to perform, or even challenging departures. So happy to deviate from the planned routing in favor of seeing something interesting along the way. So that's the background of what we're trying to do here. And now that we're in cruise, and we could kind of hang out for a little bit, actually before I truly relax, let's make sure we understand fully where our top of descent is going to fall tonight. So coming back to our operational flight plan, top of climb. So top of descent is predicted to be some time after Labna. I think about 50 miles after Labna. I like to do approach calculations with this mod just to make sure we get down to the right altitude that we need to be at based on the approach that we're doing. Since Cairo International doesn't have a star, we'll have to rely on the ILS approach for runway 5 right to dictate what altitude we need to be at and when to start our descent to Cairo. So let's take a look at those approach charts. Runway 5 right, we're going to do the ILS. Pin that for now. And since we're kind of doing a direct in, but it is... Alright, so if ATC was online tonight, we'd probably be vectored to this initial approach fix. So we might actually have to do the full circle landing. Let's see. CVO is on the flight plan, so that's probably the expectation. So once we get to Charlie Victor Oscar, we would fly this looped approach and then do the direct in ILS. So for that, we'll want to be at 4,500 feet when we get to the VOR. So let's go ahead and calculate how much distance we need to descend to that point from our current altitude. So using this nifty calculator for top of descent from 39,000 feet, we want to get to 4,500 feet. We'll want to start our descent somewhere around 108 nautical miles away from Charlie Victor Oscar, assuming a 3-degree descent angle, which is basically what we do in a managed descent in this plane. So with that in mind, let's hop over to the box and go back to our flight plan, go back to our fixes page. We can go ahead and clear the fixes we put in for our departure. Just clean this up a bit. And just to make sure I remember correctly, I think it was Charlie Victor Oscar, that's right. So we want to calculate a distance from Charlie Victor Oscar will be this one that's 400 nautical miles away. It was 108 nautical miles, so let's call it 115 to give us some buffer. And we'll want to draw a radius of 115 nautical miles. So using radius instead of radial, radial will give us the degree line that would guide us to the center of the VOR, but the radius will actually draw a circle on our NFD, sorry, on our ND. So if I zoom out enough, oh yeah, there it is. So this circle is actually being drawn 115 nautical miles all the way around that VOR. When we cross that line, we start our descent. And it's sometime after Lubna, and looking at our operational flight plan, I think that jived. Oop, too far. Yeah, top of descent, about 50 nautical miles after Lubna. So that agrees, at least somewhat. All right. So now we know where top of descent is, and now we can truly hang out until we get to that point. Okay, I'm just checking the Rex mod again. Weather is continually updating. This, I don't think you could see it on the stream since I'm not sharing the screen. Not sure if I can add it to OBS in flight. Maybe I can. Let's see if I can. See if it'll let me do it. We want to capture the Rex window. Let's see if that pops up. There it is. Okay, great. So now you can see exactly what I can see. Although it's going to keep that window on top the whole time, so I'll have to change that when I don't want to show it anymore. But yeah, as you can see, it is pulling the latest Metar data from Carpathos, which, when it was last updated, was 30 kilometers from our position. And it's a pretty lightweight Metar, which is probably why we're not seeing a lot of detail in the weather around us, because all it's really telling you is the wind speeds. And there's no TAF data available, which would give us more detail. Oh, but we do, oh, I see. Okay, but they are pulling in wind and temperature data at various altitudes. And let's see if that matches. So we're getting, oh yeah, it's pretty much exactly this. So 15, winds out of 15 degrees, 49 knots, minus 58 degrees Celsius. And looking at our weather, that's just about right. So let me move this window below so it doesn't cover the entire sim screen. There we go. And again, I think, you know, I don't really trust that there's this little cloud cover over the Mediterranean right now. Maybe Rex works better in more dense, kind of denser clusters of airports, like in the US. But I'll see if I can get a cloud report over the Mediterranean with my weather apps. See. So check Athens, Greece. Check the radar. And choose cloud layer. Very interesting. Okay, so maybe this is not a great test for this mod, because actually looking at the National Weather Service, there aren't any clouds above the Mediterranean at all. It's just straight clear skies. There was supposed to be fog at Cairo. Unclear if there will still be fog at Cairo when we get there. But we can check that Metar when we get closer. Speaking of, we did request some Metars in the box here. So let's just go pick up those messages. See what the Metars were. They're probably obsolete now, but still fun to see. So yeah, here's the Metar for Cairo. Light winds out of 220, visibility 1,000. This is I think this represents visibilities for all the different airports. But scrolling down, once we get through that, oh, okay, this is now saying broken clouds, no significant cloud cover. So I guess by the time we left Athens, the fog had lifted. So I guess we're not expecting fog anymore. But we'll pull another Metar when we get closer, just to see what we're going to deal with. Oh, and Lord Presidente, if you're still here, thank you for the follow. Appreciate it. I'm still learning Twitch. I've been streaming these on YouTube exclusively until literally one flight ago. So still a lot to learn. Yeah, happy for any feedback on things that you'd like to see as I kind of get deeper into this whole Twitch thing. So something else I'd like to do while we're in a nice cruise is look up interesting facts about the places we're going to. It's a really fun way just to kind of learn more about places of the world that you don't maybe not think about every day. I talked about Ikalowit earlier up in Nunavut, and I'd never heard of either of those places. I had no idea Nunavut was a province in Canada. I had no idea Ikalowit was its capital, but Flight Sim gave me an opportunity to learn of its existence and then learn more about the place itself. So Cairo, of course, you know, super famous city of antiquity, lots of history, lots of culture. Never been myself, although I have a very good friend of mine that used to work for me who grew up in Cairo and now lives in the Bay Area. But never actually had a chance to visit it myself. So instead of talking about ancient Egypt, which I'm sure we all have some familiarity with, I'm going to talk about the airport itself. So I do find that the history of the airports tend to be rather interesting. For example, when we're making our way across the Atlantic via that northern route, I learned that a lot of the airports there in Greenland, in Iceland, in northern Canada were established by the United Kingdom and American governments, the military during World War II, as resupply and refueling stops on the way from America to Europe because oceanic flying was not entirely possible at that time. So they had to take routes that had airports that were more easily accessible in a shorter period of time, and also provided diversion opportunities if they had issues. Like, of course, I think oceanic procedures now, you need to be within 2 hours of an airport at any given time. I think that's the current. Don't quote me on that. It's all about ETOPS procedures, which I'm still learning. But yes, but based on the aviation technology of the day, they had to stick to land as often as they possibly could. So that's where the Ikalowit airport came from. The airport we visited in Greenland was initially established to service World War II. That was super interesting. Anyway, long story short, airport history is fascinating. So looking up Cairo, let's see what we can find out about this airport. So not surprising, the busiest airport in Egypt serves Egypt Air, which I believe is the livery we'll be flying next. I'm not sure if I was able to find it, but I'll have to double check. It's about 15 kilometers from the business center of the city. And it's the second busiest next to OR Tambo International Airport in Johannesburg, which was the home of my parents before they moved to the States. They were born and raised in Johannesburg. So the first line in the history of this airport was, during World War II, the United States Army Air Forces built John Payne Field Air Force Base to serve the Allied forces, rather than take over the existing Almaza Airport located 5 kilometers away. So yes, this airport also has its roots in American World War II use. So Payne Field was a major air transport command, air cargo and passenger hub, connecting westwards through Benghazi Airport during the war, which is known as Saluk Airfield, to Algiers Airport on the North African route to Dakar Airport in French West Africa. So when American forces left the base at the end of the war, the Civil Aviation Authority took over the facility and began using it for international civil aviation. In 1963, Cairo International Airport replaced the old Heliopolis Airport, which had been located at the Hike Step area in the east of Cairo. See. What will also be nice about this airport when we get there, it's one of the handcrafted airports that Microsoft Flight Simulator included in the Deluxe Edition. So that means that we should expect better lighting, better detail of the terminal structures, hopefully better taxiway markers, because the procedurally generated taxiways are just such a pain to use. Which is why I try to use kind of modded airport scenery whenever I can. There is a luxury 350-room 5-star Le Méridien Hotel opened in front of Terminal 3 less than 10 years ago. I've stayed in a Méridien Hotel. They are very nice. I'm not sure if they were 5-star, but what's also interesting to see is on Wikipedia, when you look at airport pages, they show line graphs of annual passenger traffic at that particular airport, and they have 2020 data. They have data through 2020, and everywhere you see this beautiful, steadily increasing line over the course of about 20 years, and then all of a sudden a complete drop-off in traffic because of all the shutdowns and lockdowns that occurred that year, impacting, I mean, like literally everyone. So to give you a sense of scale, in 1995, Cairo Airport serviced about 7 million passengers that year. In 2019, it serviced 17 million passengers. So, just under 1.5x times the 1995 level. And then in 2020, it served about 7 million. So it regressed 20 years in less than 1 year time. And hopefully when the 2021 data comes out, we'll start seeing it creep up. And in 2022, hopefully it'll creep up even more. But from what I'm hearing, it sounds like airlines are bouncing back, thank goodness. So what's always nice is, when I look at the actual airlines that service these airports, I haven't been following real world routing, but in this case I may have accidentally done so, because the Aegean Airways, which is the livery we're flying tonight, can't really see it in the dark just yet, but we're flying an Aegean airplane. They do have a route from Athens to Cairo. Let's do a quick time check. Alright, we are about 40 minutes away, so at this point this is a good time to fully brief our arrival and get information into the MCDU. So let's start with getting refreshed Metar data. Do weather request. And yeah, we'll do it for all three. Why not? I did want to look up Hotel Echo Tango Bravo, because I actually don't know what airport that is, even though that is our alternate tonight. So we'll keep an eye on the Ecam for that message to come in, and I'll quickly look up what that airport is, because it will bother me if I don't. Taba International Airport, which is also an airport in Egypt. Where in Egypt? Oh, I see. It is very close to the Israeli border. It actually looks like the closest international airport to Israel on the Egypt side. It is on the other side of the Suez Canal. But yeah, that does make sense as an alternate. It's far enough away for any kind of weather issues. I assume it's a very different climate than Cairo. But yeah, okay, that does make sense as an alternate. Interesting. Alright, message is in. And let's see what it says. Alright, so winds are still pretty light. Just write this down as I go. So 210 at 3 knots. This is still saying visibility is at 1,000. So we'll see about that when we get closer. I guess that means broken clouds, no significant clouds. 13 degrees, 13 dew point. And our QNH is 1019, no sig. So we're not exactly putting this mod through its paces, this Rex mod. So looking at the weather at the mod again, let me bring this to the front of the stream so you can see it. It is saying that it's using GFS model data to interpolate distant weather data 150 miles kilometers from aircraft location. So because we're over the Mediterranean at this point. We're far from airports providing Metar data. It's interpolating. It's doing best guess, which is fine. My only request is that I hope this mod actually makes those transitions seamless. I was a little unnerved by that jumping we saw before, which I think started before I was playing around with the weather menus. Alright, back to the task at hand. Preparing for descent. Alright, so let's go and put in our approach data. So QNH, I just wrote this down, 1019. Temperature in Cairo is 13 Celsius. And wind 210 at 3. Let's see, transition altitude. So let's get our charts back for that approach. Transition altitude is 4,500 feet. The transition level is flight level 6,000. And you know what? I always get this confused because one you use for departure and one you use for arrival. And the McDo seems to be pegging itself to the transition level. So let me quickly Google search here what we should be using. Transition level versus transition altitude. Okay. Yeah, so the McDo is correct. So transition level is what you use to switch the altimeter from standard pressure to the local QNH. While the transition altitude is when you do the opposite, when you transition from local QNH to standard. And the memory device to remember is that transition altitude is for going above, AA, altitude above, and level is for landing, level landing. It's a nice tip. Okay, so transition altitude is fine. Maybe the McDo should actually say transition level. That is actually more correct based on what we just read. Okay, looking at minimums, barrow minimums for an ILS landing for Cat C aircraft, which we are, is 697. And that is when we make our decision to continue or go around. Alright, and we'll hear that call out. We'll hear minimums, and then we'll make that decision. Alright, so that looks set. Our green dot speed is pretty slow, 199. 199, okay. And, alright, so once we get to that VOR, we'll want to get down to 2,700 feet, and that's our altitude for intercepting the initial approach fix. Where we'll capture the glide slope and then we'll be guided all the way down to the runway. If we are still going to get fog, we may do an auto land. It's something I've never done before, but I've reviewed the procedure. It should be pretty straightforward. But if we do have good visibility before we hit minimums, then I'll take the aircraft off autopilot and fly it in myself. It is the more fun way to do it. Standard is set angle on the ILS, so in terms of configuring the aircraft, we don't need to worry too much. Although I think we'll probably want to at least slow down to green dot when we get to Charlie Victor Oscar here. 9 miles from Charlie Victor Oscar, because we don't want to be too fast going into this turn and miss the straight approach. I'd rather be going slower than faster. So we'll plan for flaps 1. We'll plan for approach phase probably around here. And maybe even before it, just to be safe. Why not? We're not in a terrible hurry. Alright, so that's pretty much it for the approach. Let's look at airport information and parking stands. So we're coming in runway 5 right. Oh, this is a fun little airport. So let's assume the first opportunity we'll have to exit is Hotel 2, maybe Hotel 1. In either case, we'll take Foxtrot to Lima. We're going to have to cross another runway at some point. So we'll just check for traffic. Lima to Tango, and Tango pretty much all the way to the main terminal here. And this is... should tell you where we can see more details for DTLC 109A. Oh, that's the parking stands. That makes sense. So, looking at 109A, there's Tango. Jeez. I mean, Terminal 2 seems like the main one, just kind of looking at this. Well, I believe Terminal 3 is relatively new. And you know what? Terminal 3, I think, is where that fancy hotel is. So let's go park by the fancy hotel. So let's take Tango to Delta, and then we'll pick one of these gates here. Maybe Golf 2. Cool. So that is done. Let me check my standard operating procedures doc here. See what else we've missed. Landing performance. Let's go through this. So the runway is long. Feel good about that. But just for practice, let's use our landing calculator just to confirm that we all feel good about this. So, Hotel Echo Charlie Alpha. Get Metar data. All jives with what we've been seeing. QNH though, is that what we have? That is what we have, okay. Alright, so runway slope called 0. It's 4,000 feet. Sorry, 4,000 meters rather. Our approach speed, I was just looking at that. No, not 5. Hold on. Get out of that. 140, let's say. Oh, landing speed, 122. I think that's what that means. 122, and our landing weight expected to be 59 tons. So we'll just do an even 59,000 there. Flaps full, no overweight. We do have reverse thrust. And what am I missing? Runway heading. Runway heading is 45, and altitude on average, that's pretty flat. So let's say 455. And calculate. And yeah, as I figured, we could use low brakes for such a long runway. We don't need to freak people out on the landing. So low it is. All that just to confirm what we already knew. That's how you fly safe. You always check. Alright, we did our destination page. Rad navs. Let's do some rad navs. There is definitely at least one VOR to track on this approach. So Cairo, most importantly. Oh, but you know what? We haven't even programmed the runway and the flight plans. Let's do that first. So for the arrival, we are doing ILS for runway 5 right. No star, no transition, easy. Just make sure that looks about right. So what is it picking up here? I can already tell that we're going to have to make some corrections here because HECA should not be in that position. But I just want to see. Normally you'd be able to line up these points. Oh, this is a cool new feature. We'll talk about this later on, but this is new, the flap 1, flap 2 markers. F105, right. All right. Well, let's actually look at it on the map here. And let's see, where are we relative to? We still have time before that descent marker, right? Not a ton of time, so we'll have to watch that. But let's look at the plan a bit more closely and make sure this all makes sense. So deck D, the CVO, I'm going to remove that extra HECA because that is going to confuse things. Clear the discontinuity. Alright, so that already looks better. Ish. So it has us doing a huge circle, but that's because it's using our current speed to project out that path. We're going to definitely get down to approach speed before that point. So this curve should look more normal, and then that's a straight in to HECA. So I'm going to trust that this is going to work the way we want it to. Clearing out that extra HECA waypoint is definitely required. But that looks better. Alright, but yes, quick note on Flap 1, Flap 2. So this is new for the experimental version of this mod that was released, I think, today or yesterday. This basically indicates the latest that the McDo would want you to go to Flap 1 and go to Flap 2. We should be configured before these points. These are not indications for us to go to Flap 1 or Flap 2. We still need to use our best judgment as sim pilots, but if we are not in Flap 1 by the time we get to this point, we better be. That's kind of our final warning. It's a pretty neat feature. Alright, so that is set, and we were going to do rad navs. Let's do rad navs. Just do a quick check, because I don't want to miss the descent point. Alright, we've got about 40 miles to go. Alright, so yes, we want CVO in there. BR1. And otherwise we have the ILS. What's the missed approach? Immediately turn right to 80 degrees, climbing 2000, then right turn climb to reach VOR at 3500 and hold or as directed. Oh, I see, and there's the hold imprinted over there. So it's all based around the Cairo VOR. So that's really the one thing we need to pay attention to. So, yeah, CVO right there. Great. Great, 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 great. So rad navs are done. We did performance. Look at fuel prediction. We should still be fine. Yeah, we're still fine, even for our alternate. Great. Oh, and we need to set our TCAS to below. And I don't know who's still flying in our area. Let's see if there's anyone that we might pick up on the TCAS. Just looking at my secondary monitor on the something's not right with VATSIM map. Here we go. Oh, there we go. Yeah, there's a bunch of planes at HECA. I mean, Cairo International. No ATC. But maybe we'll pick up, if those flights depart before we get there, maybe we'll pick up them on the TCAS. That'll be a fun test. They would show up as, I think, white diamonds on the display. Awesome. Let's pull it in. Get a better view of that top of descent marker quickly approaching. Oh, wow. Look at that. Starting to see some terrain as the suns will crest very soon. Beautiful. So just looking at our approach briefing, make sure we've done everything. We talked about weather, we talked about the terminal information, talked about fuel, nav frequencies, routing, constraints, transition level, nav frequencies, approaching minima, transition level. Did all that. We know we reviewed the runway. We looked at taxi routing. No special procedures. Great. Yep, so our next activity will be at 10,000 feet after we start our descent, very shortly. Let's see how Rex is doing. Ah, ha, 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 yes. We're starting to pick up weather from Alexandria International in Egypt. And there is weather there. Nothing significant, but there is weather. Still using GFS model data to interpolate distant weather data. We're not quite close enough. But we'll see. We'll see if it improves as we get closer. Get better Metar data. Just remind myself, it's 4,500 feet that we want to go down to. That is right. Ooh. Big frame rate drop. Big frame rate drop. What was that? Alright, well, I'll ignore it for now. Let's go down to 4,500. And down we go. So the frames haven't completely recovered. Let's see how we do. We're probably about 10 frames lower than I would expect us to be. So I believe this is something folks reported about 2 hours into a flight, getting frame rate dips in the experimental version. So this might be a fly-by-wire issue. I was really hoping not to encounter that because I have a pretty high-end system running a 3080 Ti. We'll keep an eye on that. Oof. Whoa, whoa. This is borderline unflyable now. Alright, we're in descent mode. I may have to apologize in advance. I think we're starting to lose it. But I do see weather ahead, so at least that looks like that's working. Yeah, I'm reading 7 frames per second right now when we were getting consistently about 40 this whole flight. Also when we're going to expect max shear rate, so I'm going to go ahead and turn seatbelt signs back on. Come on, fly-by-wire, you can do it. Well, I have the day off tomorrow. I'm not going back to work until Tuesday, so I'll have a chance to come back tomorrow if this does decide it wants to fail. And I'll go back to the development version. We'll lose things like overfly and those LNAV enhancements and TCAS. But man, that is a fine trade-off to get my frames back. But now I think we're starting to get a better sense of what Rex can do, and that honestly, even though we're in this low light right before sunrise, that looks beautiful. You know, even if we are at like 10 frames per second right now. Jeez. One thing I did recently learn, since we've cleared ourselves to descend below transition level, at that point we can go back to local QNH, which we can now set to 1019 per our briefing. Alright, looks like frames are recovering a bit again. And, oh man, like, I know we're still getting stuttering, but regardless, this looks beautiful. Look at this. We're back to 32 frames per second. Please stay here. I don't want to have to do this flight over again. Oh, man. Oh, jeez. So pretty. Just want a little bit more sunshine, but let's go ahead and get some screenshots anyway in this low light. Oh, but look at that in the distance. I wonder if that, you know, I think that is Alexandria off to the west. Oh, wow. Okay. I'm starting to feel more impressed with the Rex at the moment. And just the simulator as well, jeez. one thing I've wanted to see is how Flight Simulator transitions between night and day. So you see all these ground lights on. Like, I wonder if there's a point where they start to shut off, or maybe the light gets so high that it just kind of washes out the ground lights, so you don't really see them turning off or fading away. But I've always been curious to see how the sim handles that transition. I haven't been able to catch it just yet. Alright, frames are recovering somewhat, but they're still kind of all over the place. We're about 4.5 minutes from our VOR point. So yeah, that's just about enough time to get to our altitude based on our current descent rate. Oh, I see there's another plane. There's another plane on VATSIM. Are they showing up on TCAS? Well, they look above us, so maybe not, but maybe if I set this to above. Oh, wow. We'll do all. Why not? There's not that much traffic right now. Do we see them? Do they show up? It doesn't look like it. Where'd they go? I swear they were just there. Yeah, just checking on the VATSIM maps. Yeah, they just passed us. Too tight. Gorgeous. Alright, so we're starting to slow down as we get to 10,000 feet. It's a good time to do our 10,000 feet checks. So, landing lights are set. Seatbelts are on. We are set on constraints. Landing systems, we will be using that tonight. Rad navs are selected and identified. We didn't turn them on, but now they're on. Engine mode is set to normal. Ecam status, check. Approach checklist. briefing is confirmed. Ecam status is checked. Seatbelt is on. Bower ref is set. Minimums are set. Confirmed here. And engine mode selector is normal. Approach checklist complete. So next we'll be activating the approach phase. And I think we'll consider doing that once we pass through the Charlie Victor Oscar VOR. Which will cross in about 4.5 minutes. Wait a minute. I wonder if this is where some of the lagging is coming from. Look at this. We are getting close to that VOR. At the time, it is not updating. Nautical miles are counting down. I wonder if this is something to do with it. Again, if any fly-by-wire developers ever come across this video, which I highly doubt they will, but if you do, I would check maybe something with the glass cockpit might be causing these frame rate issues. Just a hunch. And the weather updated to, while I was looking down there, the weather updated to Cairo, which seems to be very different than Alexandria. Right, all those clouds just disappeared. So this might be, yeah, this might be just an annoying limitation of Rex, is that it really is reliant on nearest airport data, and in the transitions, it may get a little poppy. I didn't actually see it pop out, but I can't imagine this was a smooth transition because weather just doesn't behave like that. All these clouds are just suddenly gone. So Microsoft, please fix your live weather. When you're flying VATSIM, it's really needed. But right now, I'll forgive it because the views. Oh, the views. Let's actually enjoy some of these fly-by-wire views that have pre-programmed. They've done a really good job. Here we go. You see our landing lights are on. Oh, the frame rates suck in here. Oh, jeez. Still cool. Still think they're cool. See some wing flex, cool wing reflections. It's on my list of things to do to learn how to use the replay feature that they have in the developer tools, so we can actually see landings from various vantage points, because I'm not quite at the point where I'd want to do a landing from the back. Alright, speed, Alt-Star will be at 4,500. Well in advance of the VOR, which is great. We gave ourselves some buffer, and we're not going to need it. Still having these intermittent frame rate issues. As long as it doesn't hurt us when we're landing, we should be fine. let's start concentrating a little bit. So after we complete this turn, we'll want to get down to 2,700 feet. And I think on our way down there, we'll activate the approach phase and start to think about configuring. See, the airport is directly in front of us. Can I overfly that? Is the sim going to hate me if I try to do that? Hit overfly. Overfly CVO. It's probably damn, it's probably not the smartest thing because it's going to give me a weird flight path to that next point. But again, we'll activate the approach phase and slow up while in time. And actually, alright, now I'm getting nervous. I feel like that was maybe the wrong thing to do, especially these frame rate issues. Let's activate the approach phase now. Start slowing ourselves down. Make that turn a bit easier to do. You see the flight path is already updating. We're practically at CVO, so we'll go down to 2,700. And stay in managed altitude mode. We'll get to green dot speed in no time. Yeah, we'll definitely want to configure by the time we get to this next waypoint. Alright, speed check, flaps 1. Yeah, we just want to reduce that arc best we can. We'll get to flaps 2 by that next marker. And as we're turning, we'll activate that approach phase. Oh, and you see the flaps 1 and flaps 2 points. Radio altimeter's alive. We see flaps 1 and flaps 2 markers actually on the flight path there, so that's pretty cool.
2,500.
Oh, wow, that's stuttering. Speed check flaps 2. Start this turn. And when we have visual of the runway, I'll activate the approach on the FMS. Whoa, my God. Come on, frames, don't die me now. Big turn. Beautiful, look at that. This would be nice if it was at the normal 40 frames per second that we normally enjoy. There's the runway. Activate the approach phase. Autopilot 2. Gear down. Gear confirmed down. We'll get our runway turn off and takeoff. There's lights on. Speed check, flaps 3. And flaps full. Fully configured. Cairo traffic at GN 9084, type A320neo on 8.5 mile final for Cairo, runway 5 right. Glide slope is still above us. Loc star, loc, glide slope star. Glide slope. We are established. We have 40 frames per second. My God, please stay. Let's make sure we know what our missed altitude is. Missed approach altitude is 2000, so set that in the FMS now. That's ready to go. And now all we gotta do, friends, is land. Alright, so we do have a bit of a crosswind, 10 knots. Just off our port bow. Just under 5 miles to go. So I'll take this off autopilot at 500 feet. I would normally do it at, at 1,000 AGL, but I'm just nervous that those frames are going to drop and we're just going to crash. Part of me just wants to auto land this thing tonight, but that wouldn't be fun. Let's take the chance. I think if we wait to 500 feet, we'll very likely be able to get us on the ground safely. Just enjoy this approach a little bit, though. Ooh. Cairo, I want to visit you one day.
1,000.
Alright, 1,000. Landing checklist. Cabin crew advised. Authorized speed of brake is required. Go ahead and ping them. Let's arm the spoilers.
Flight attendants, please prepare for landing.
There we go. We look very high according to those pappies. But we're on the glide slope. Alright, taking it off autopilot. I no longer trust. That glide slope. Small adjustments. Small adjustments.
100 above.
That wind is gone. So just stay on that center line.
500. Minimum.
Continue.
400. 300.
Alright, got my eyes on the landing target.
200.
Little to the right center line. Adjust. Gonna have to pull up. We're gonna need that extra length. We're coming pretty
50,
steep.
40, 30, 20. Retard. 5.
Reverse thrust. Decel. knots. Brakes. Ooh, alright. Still not quite on center line, still gotta work on that. But I think that was a nice and soft landing. I'll have to check the stats. We're a bit fast for taxiway. Let me slow down a bit. Oh, I'm just thankful to be on the ground. Those frame rate issues, I was a little concerned. Alright, let us pause here, do our after landing checklists before we get into the taxiway, and make our call. Cairo traffic, Aegean 9084, clear of runway 5 right. Ooh. Let's see, what was that landing rate? I'm looking on the stream replay. 19, wow, jeez, that was the softest landing I think I've ever done. We did float a bit down the runway. I wouldn't have been able to do that on a shorter runway. But, ooh, wow, I am happy with that. I am happy with that. Alright, I'm looking for my after landing checklist here. I have a lot of emergency procedures here. Ah, here we go. So, after landing... Oop. Alright. After landing, we want our radars off and predictive weather system off. Engine mode selected to norm, flaps retract. TCAS on standby. ATC is required. We'll put that back to standby. APU start. 1, 2, 3. Anti-ice is required. Brake temperature check. Can't really see from here. Brake temperature. Show me the wheels. Brake temperature is fine, because we didn't need to brake very hard on that. After landing checklist complete. Alright. And also, I feel like, at what point do we turn off our lights? Yeah, I feel like there's something missing from this list. I distinctly remember that, like, at this point, I mean, we're leaving the runway. I'm going to turn my landing lights off. I'm going to set my strobe to auto and my nose to taxi. And turn off, we can turn those off because it's daytime. That just makes sense to me. I'm not sure if that's correct, but we'll check that after the fact. But for now, let's check out, let's re-review our path to parking stands. So, where did we exit? Oh, we got our first exit here, and we'll go down, oh, we're right at Lima, so we should just go straight down Lima. to Tango and make sure we're not going to intersect traffic on the other runway. Let's roll. I think all those planes on VATSIM that were here before us are gone. I think we saw the last of them depart as we were approaching Cairo. So we don't need to worry about ground traffic at the moment. And this looks like Lima to me. Too fast for that kind of turn. It's fine. Alright. Got a long taxi down Lima. Let's see what Rex says about the weather. Yeah. The latest Metar for Cairo is clear, and that kind of makes sense, you know, because like fog, cold air, warm air, but as the sun rises and the temperature increases, the fog probably burns off really quick. So I'm going to believe this, but I think I still have a mild preference for Microsoft weather. It's a nice livery. Oh, there's a giant hill right there next to the runway. Increase the brightness a bit now that we're in daylight. Approaching this runway. I'm going to assume we have clearance to cross, but just do a quick lift. Right check. No obvious traffic. If this airport had a proper ATIS, we'd actually be able to check if that runway was in use, which would also give us a better sense of how safe it would be to cross, and if we should expect ATC to give us straight clearance to cross that runway when we get to it. Again, since we're the only aircraft here, not that much of an issue. Slow down a bit for this turn onto Tango. I'm pretty happy with that turn. That was with the tiller. The tiller is doing that weird thing again. I think it's not really, I don't think it's the mod. I think it's my Thrustmaster. I'm using a Thrustmaster 1600 or 16,000 for the tiller. Otherwise, I'm using the Honeycomb Alpha yoke, Honeycomb Bravo throttle, and the Logitech rudder pedals for the rest of the setup. Love the Alpha, love the Bravo. The Thrustmasters, the rudder pedals are but I'm not willing to drop like 700 for those really nice Thrustmasters. And I believe Honeycomb is coming out with the Charlie rudder pedals sometime this year. So we'll see if it'll be worth upgrading to those. So those look fantastic. Alright, let's make sure we still know where we're going. We are looking, we're going to turn off Terminal 3 because we want to be fancy, if you remember. We're staying at the Meridian tonight, guys. So we want Terminal 3, or we want to turn off at Delta. Which is my American airline of preference. Easy to remember. So we just passed Gamma. passing these way too fast. I can't even tell. What is this? Can't tell. Oh god, these signs are still so hard to read. But visually, I think we're still good. That looks like Terminal 2. Oh wait, but we're on Tango. We want to get up to Sierra. So we want to turn to Sierra 1. What is this? Well, it just takes us to Sierra. So let's go to Sierra, just so we don't miss our turnoff. Taxiing is an art in and of itself. Alright, now we're in Sierra. Now it should be harder for us to miss our turnoff. Yes, now we're looking for Delta. Why is it doing that? We're going to assume Delta is that next one. Look, there's no marker. There's nothing telling you what this is. Let's slow down. Is it Delta? I don't know. Alright, so actually... this visually looks correct. Yes, okay, we're good. We're good. We're going where we want to go. And we're going to go into Gamma 2. Like normally you would see the parking stand markings on the ground so you know where to turn, so you don't actually have to look at the gates. But we know we're going to be the second one from the end. I think it's looking like this one. If we're wrong, c'est la vie. We tried. Yeah, I think this is right. Oh, what a time to hit frame rate issues again. Oof. Alright, turn into the stand. That's pretty bang on. And turn those lights off so we don't blind them. We want to go... oh, we're going too fast. You really don't want to go more than 5 knots pulling into the stand. And... we'll have to stop ourselves. Oh, no, too early! I'm such a friggin' perfectionist. And close enough. little extra boost. Boom. Alright, fine. Whatever. That's pretty good. So parking brake on. And our APU is running, so we'll go ahead and shut those engines down. And get that seatbelt sign off. And then we'll go through our parking checklist. So, ground spoilers are disarmed. Radars off. Well, we already did that. Okay. Park at the gates. Brake pressure check. Parking brakes are on. Brake pressure indicator check. Anti-ice is off. APU is available. APU bleed is on. Interesting. APU bleed on. Maybe for the sake of the packs. Makes sense. External power is available, so we'll get that hooked up in a sec. That usually takes some time. But engines, both masters are to off. Beacon off, because the engines are off. Seatbelts are off. Exterior lights is required, so we'll go ahead and turn the strobes off. And we'll just keep the nav and logo light on while we're in the cockpit. Parking checklist. APU bleed is on. Engines are off. Seatbelts are off. External lights are as required. Fuel pumps off. Parking brake and chocks are as required. And that is it for after parking. So let's go ahead and get the services rolling, and then we'll secure the aircraft. So let's get our jetway. Let's get our power. Let's get our baggage. And we'll check the doors. And the motion. Yeah, here comes the jetway. That looks like a bug. That looks wrong. Alright, so cabin door is open. Baggage is coming, maybe? Baggage. There we go. Power. There we go. This is a real ops flight, guys. We're doing all of it. Flight's not over till it's over. I want to get some photos too. Where is that Le Meridian? That's what I want to know. So it's like connected. I'm guessing that's it over there. Maybe use the drone camera when we're done and just kind of fly around the airport, see what we find, because it looks pretty cool. Alright, so while all that's going, we'll start cleaning up our FMU. So flight directors off, flying system off, constraints off. Start dimming these lights that we don't need. And here, you don't need these. Let's open the cockpit door. Let's welcome our passengers as they deplane. I don't need these lights anymore. Alright. So, let's assume everyone is off. We're ready to secure the plane. So let's go ahead and activate external power. So now we're on external power. Oxygen crew supplies off. Parking brake is on. Aiders are off. Maintenance bus is required. APU bleed and master switch is off. We're on external power. Emergency exit lights and signs are off. And securing the aircraft checklist. Aiders are off, oxygen off, APU bleed off, emergency exit lights are off, signs are off, APU and battery will, APU is off, we'll turn off battery in a second. And go ahead and dim these Metars, just out of courtesy for extending the life of the Metars, as well as for the next cabin crew. The next cockpit crew to come by. Clear these Ecam messages. Sign off of VATSIM. Turn these radios off. So long, folks. Let's set the off position. And I think we're looking pretty secured to me. So let's go ahead and turn off our external power and the batteries. Oh, and this happened last time too, where the APU is still running even though I turned it off. So I think normally when I just turn this back on and then off again, will it shut down? Boop. And boop. Alright, well that might be a residual bug. Unless there really is still power flowing through the APU, which there shouldn't be. Yeah, no, this is, I don't think this is how it's supposed to behave. But in any case, this is normally where I'd end the stream. Before I do want to take a look around the scenery while we're here. Let's find that drone camera. Oof. How do I fix this? Oop. The APU just shut down? I think it did. So you know what? It's just on a delay. That's all. Okay. I feel better. Alright. Let's fly this thing. Woo! That's fun. So how does one move forward? Oh, there we go. Oh. Oh, yeah. There we go. So we'll fly over of Terminal 3 here. Oh yeah, and I'm pretty sure this is the Meridian Hotel because it was referencing this kind of walkway, maybe about 250 meters. Some of the scenery is broken, kind of looking at it. But it's not bad. It's not bad. I'm sure there are folks on the flight sim markets that have better versions of this. I'm pretty sure that truck just like jumped over that causeway. But yeah, no, I mean, if you want to fly to Cairo and stay at a 5-star hotel, like right at the airport, this is your option. This is it. I mean, even though it's not fully rendered out, that looks like a Meridian to me, just based on the architecture and what the sim is picking up. But yeah. Guys, that was a super fun flight. Thank you so much for joining me, especially to Lord Presidente, who I think is still here and joined for the whole time. So I really appreciate that. Would love for you to join us again as we continue our path east. I don't know exactly where we're heading next. I'll have to check my log. But we are headed deeper into the Middle East as we make our way to India and then to Nepal. And when we get to Nepal, we'll definitely be doing that famous Paru approach up in the mountains. If you haven't seen YouTube videos of A320s doing the Paru approach, I highly recommend it. It is absolutely insane. There's only a handful of pilots in the world that are actually certified to do that approach. And it is hair-raising every single time. I get my hands get all sweaty every time I watch a video for it. Now you see the pyramids of Giza out in the distance. If we do daytime flight next, hopefully we'll get to see that on our departure out. But yeah, again, thanks for joining us. This has been Mike November Whiskey, your pilot for this evening, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.